Justice, release the files, end the secrecy, and stand with us in declaring that no one, no billionaires, no politicians, not world leaders, is above the law.
There's a moment from the Golden Globes that people keep going back to years later, and the reason isn't just because it was funny. It's because the energy in that room shifted in a way you could feel even through a screen. Hollywood's biggest actors, producers, and power players are sitting in a ballroom dressed like royalty. Cameras moving across the tables, champagne flowing, everyone expecting the usual safe award show routine, and then Ricky Gervais walks out. From the second he grabbed the microphone, you could tell he wasn't there to play the usual game. No polite celebrity praise, no rehearsed compliments to the industry, just a comedian standing in front of some of the most powerful people in entertainment saying things most hosts would never dare say out loud. And the room immediately felt uncomfortable. You could see it on people's faces. Some laughed nervously, some stared straight ahead, and others looked like they were hoping the camera wouldn't land on them while Ricky kept going. The moment that stuck with people the most was when he casually mentioned Jeffrey Epstein in the middle of the monologue and then followed it up by basically telling the audience he didn't care if they were uncomfortable. It wasn't the kind of joke award shows are built around. It was sharp, awkward, and it landed like a brick in a room that wasn't used to hearing that name spoken so directly. Before we get deeper into the moments from that speech and the reactions that people still talk about today, do me a quick favor and hit the like button and subscribe if you enjoy breakdowns like this, because we cover stories the entertainment industry usually tries to move past quickly, and you don't want to miss the next one.
I know he's your friend, but I don't care. You had to make your own way here in your own plane, didn't you?
Kept asking you back to do those awards, and the actual actors and actresses in the audience, they looked terrified at the idea of you mentioning their name. Did you feel that?
I did, and I noticed it the first time. I didn't get it. Like, one of the first one I did it, people would come up and say, "What are you going to say about me?" I think, why do you care? I only go after their public behaviours. I don't, you know, expose anything about them or, you know, nothing that bad.
What made you think, you know what, I'm just going to hammer them?
When they said, do you want to host the Golden Globes, all that stuff I said in the show was true. I said, oh, I'm going to write my own jokes, right? And I thought, who do I pander to? The 200 richest people in the room, or the 200 million people watching at home who aren't winning awards, who aren't millionaires.
Now, here's what makes that Golden Globes monologue interesting years later. At the time, a lot of people treated it like Ricky Gervais simply doing what he does best, roasting celebrities. But when you watch it again now, knowing everything that happened in the years surrounding the Epstein scandal and the conversations about power and influence that followed, the tone of those jokes feels different. Suddenly, people started replaying the clip, pausing it, zooming in on reactions from actors sitting in the crowd, analyzing expressions and body language like they were trying to decode something happening in the room. One of the reactions that went viral almost immediately was Tom Hanks. The camera cut to him for just a few seconds, and his expression looked stunned, confused, almost like he wasn't sure how the room was supposed to respond. The internet turned that moment into a meme within hours. But beyond the memes, people kept asking the same question: why did that joke land so heavily in that room? Award show hosts roast celebrities all the time. It's practically tradition at this point. Yet that moment felt different. Maybe it was the timing. Maybe it was the name being mentioned.
The idea that a guy actually had a island. I mean,
That's what Ricky Gervais was joking about last night. Did you watch that?
Of course he was. No, but I did see the one clip that somebody put on the internet about him saying, don't virtue signal, just come out here and get your little prize and go off because nobody cares about your opinion. I was like, thank you.
The fact that Ricky Gervais wasn't trying to soften the joke or cushion the blow the way most hosts do. He just said it and kept moving. That has always been Ricky's style. From the very beginning of his career, he's been the type of comedian who doesn't seem interested in protecting celebrity egos. When the Golden Globes invited him to host for the first time back in 2010, he made it clear that he was going to write his own jokes and say what he wanted to say. And every time he came back to host again, the monologues became more fearless. Instead of celebrating Hollywood the way award shows usually do, Ricky treated the room like a giant target. He joked about studio hypocrisy, celebrity scandals, corporate sponsors, and the way wealthy entertainers sometimes lecture the public about politics or morality. One of his most quoted lines from that 2020 monologue came when he told the winners in the audience that when they come up to accept their awards, they should keep their speeches short and avoid using the moment to lecture the public about politics because, as he put it, most of them know nothing about the real world. That line hit the internet like wildfire. People watching at home loved it, but in the room you could see a mix of laughter and discomfort.
So Tom Hanks is in the Epstein files. Yes, and it seems to be pretty significant, as I will describe. So in this first example, it sounds like Tom Hanks was hanging out with Epstein. Let's go over what happened. So this is an email from Peggy Siegel to Epstein from 2013, well after Epstein's conviction, by the way. Peggy Siegel was the publicist for Epstein who had offered to bring Epstein back little boys or girls from a trip, and Peggy Siegel says to Epstein, if Tom Hanks is around, tell him his Walt Disney is a bit hit. I think she meant to say big hit, but it sounds like Tom Hanks may have been hanging out with Epstein around, I guess, this Thanksgiving time. Really sketchy. Remember that Epstein's first conviction was in 2008. This email is from 2013. And despite what people are trying to say, it was very well known that Epstein was a convicted offender of you know what. Let's talk about the other places that Tom Hanks appears in the Epstein files. Oh wait, quick note on that first email. It was addressed to someone named David, who was apparently right off the coast of Jeffrey's private island.
Files exposed Leonardo DiCaprio swapping emails with Woody Allen where he brags about being a full-blown cannibal. In those messages, Leonardo openly discusses a cannibal diet and boasts that he put away over 70 pounds of child meat in just 2 weeks. This same conversation is filled with grotesque code words for children. Repeated references to jerky appear throughout their exchange, with jerky widely interpreted as code for human flesh. In one email, instructions were given to transport the jerky in a cold insulated bag with ice, which is suspicious because standard dried jerky doesn't require refrigeration, unlike fresh human flesh would. Clearly, they are referencing the consumption of large amounts of human flesh, which they describe as jerky.
That tension is exactly why Ricky Gervais became such a memorable Golden Globes host. He wasn't trying to make the room feel comfortable. He was trying to make the audience watching at home laugh by saying the things viewers had been thinking about celebrity culture for years. And when he mentioned Epstein, it tapped directly into a conversation that was already brewing in the public mind about powerful people and the circles they move in. Jeffrey Epstein's case shocked the world because it exposed just how connected he was to influential figures in business, politics, and entertainment. His private jet flight logs, photographs from social events, and high-profile friendships created endless speculation about who knew what and when. Even though being associated with someone socially doesn't automatically imply wrongdoing, the scale of Epstein's network raised a lot of uncomfortable questions about the way powerful circles operate. That's part of the reason Ricky's joke hit so hard. By 2020, the Epstein story had already dominated headlines for months. The idea that some extremely powerful people had crossed paths with him socially had become a huge talking point online. When Ricky referenced it in a room filled with celebrities, it felt like someone bringing an uncomfortable conversation directly into the heart of Hollywood. And the internet did what it always does. It dissected every second of the clip. Some viewers said Ricky was simply doing comedy and people were reading too much into it. Others argued that comedians often get away with saying,
You know what I'm saying? Like Oprah Winfrey stood next to and kissed perverts and kissed like sick perverts right in front of our face during survival. She was defending every pervert that she could defend. From Russell Simmons to Diddy Glover to what's the other dude, Weinstein. But like I said, it's more proof and things that are coming out, man, with this Epstein guy.
Things that journalists or insiders might hesitate to say directly. Joe Rogan even talked about the monologue on his podcast, praising Ricky for saying what he called the quiet part out loud in front of an audience that wasn't expecting it. Whether you agree with that interpretation or not, the clip kept spreading. Years later, it still circulates every time conversations about Epstein resurface online, and that's where the bigger discussion begins. Because Ricky Gervais didn't just roast individual celebrities, his monologues often criticized the entire culture surrounding Hollywood fame. The idea that actors, producers, and entertainers sometimes live in a world so removed from everyday life that they forget how their speeches or public statements sound to ordinary people watching from home. Ricky leaned into that disconnect repeatedly during his hosting years. Instead of presenting Hollywood as untouchable, he reminded viewers that these were just extremely wealthy public figures sitting in a fancy ballroom handing awards to each other. That perspective resonated with audiences because it broke the illusion award shows usually try to maintain.
It appears as though one of those poop splatters is Jay-Z. I mean, come on. One of Diddy's close friends wouldn't be doing this stuff, would he? Epstein files reveal this FBI report, which says in approximately 1994, revealed herself to blank as a past victim of sex abuse by Epstein. Blank described the abuse occurred during parties. In approximately 1996, Blank resided with blank in blank, just to be specific. An unknown man abducted Blank from her home when she later awoke in the presence of Harvey Weinstein and Sean Carter, Jay-Z.
For a few minutes, the power dynamic flipped. Instead of celebrities controlling the narrative, a comedian stood on stage poking fun at the entire system. And that's why those Golden Globes clips still circulate today. They capture a rare moment when Hollywood looked slightly unsure of itself. A room full of confident stars suddenly watching a host who clearly wasn't interested in protecting their image. Over time, the speech became one of those cultural moments people reference whenever discussions about elite influence, celebrity culture, or media power start trending again online. And that leads to the question viewers still debate. Was Ricky Gervais simply doing his job as a fearless comedian? Or did those jokes resonate so strongly because they touched on conversations the public was already having about the people who operate behind the scenes of fame and power? The truth probably sits somewhere in the middle. Ricky Gervais has always said he writes jokes about public behavior and celebrity culture, not secret insider information. But comedy has always had a strange ability to highlight uncomfortable truths in a way that other forms of commentary sometimes can't. When a comedian says something shocking, people laugh and then they think about it later. That's exactly what happened with the Golden Globes monologue. A few minutes of edgy jokes turned into a clip that people still analyze years later, not because it exposed anything concrete, but because it captured a moment when Hollywood's polished image cracked just enough for viewers to see the tension underneath. And whether you see that speech as pure comedy or something deeper, one thing is undeniable. Ricky Gervais walked into one of the most powerful rooms in entertainment and said things that most hosts would never even consider putting in a script. The laughter, the awkward reactions, the viral memes, and the endless debates that followed all came from that single moment of unscripted honesty on stage. Which is why the clip keeps resurfacing every time conversations about celebrity power return to the spotlight. People remember the tension in that room. They remember the way the cameras cut to stunned faces in the audience. And most of all, they remember a comedian standing on stage acting like he had absolutely nothing to lose, while some of the most famous people in the world sat quietly watching him say it.